Hi everyone, this is Sam here, a current college student at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to my podcast, College Conscience, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between with the college experience. With each episode, I focus on a different topic pertaining to college life with a different friend, and I really want to hear their perspectives and see what advice they have for me and anyone who might listen about that specific topic. Some examples include health and wellness, academics, professional career, exploration, and even more. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please stick around and hear what my friends have to say. Hey Anjali, thanks so much for deciding to be on my podcast. Really excited to have you. Could you just give a quick introduction of yourself as well as the topic that we'll be talking about today?
Yeah, of course. Super excited to be on this fine Saturday. My name's Anjali. I'm a sophomore in the School of Foreign Service, currently undeclared, but probably going to major in international politics with a concentration in foreign policy and minors in math and French. And the topic that I wanted to talk about today when you asked me to come up with one was really friendship circles and friend groups, specifically in high school and then transitioning into college now.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, with your experience in high school, could you talk a bit about where you went to high school as well as if you had any friend groups in that scenario?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I had a relatively unique high school experience. I feel like everyone probably says that, but particularly because I went to an all-girls school, and so I went to a co-ed like elementary and middle school and then transitioned to an all-girls high school. And when I came in, I really didn't know what to expect because people often ask like, is it a lot of like petty drama at all-girls schools? Like, does it really get kind of very like tense? And I honestly really didn't know what to expect, came in with kind of very low expectations about it, and then was really pleasantly surprised because pretty immediately, actually, I found a group of friends that I would stay with through senior year, which I feel like is relatively rare in terms of I feel like friendship groups very much like ebb and flow, and generally the people that you meet your freshman year are not the same people that you will like end high school or end college with. But for me, it was, and I think that was a blessing because it just made it so simple, and I think that was also helped by COVID and the fact that we were gone for half of high school, so there wasn't really much ebb and flow possible. But my friend group was probably about like it was really large. It was about 15 people that we all just kind of hung together, and obviously there were pockets of us that were tighter. There were like we would hang out in kind of smaller sub segments of the friend group, but generally we were all this kind of big, like very happy-go-lucky friend group, and I think that was a very unique experience that not a lot of people have.
Yeah, did you guys have a name for your group or?
we so it was kind of I actually tacked on to this group probably like midway through the second semester of freshman year, and so around that time, we had a name for the group chat, which I feel like inevitably becomes kind of the group name. But the you're gonna laugh at this, but the group name for the group chat was cool kids on the block with like cool like with a K and then kids with a Z because we were
So
freshmen in high
quirky.
school. I know, right? I know. But then eventually we became, I think it was like the batches at the end, which towards the end of high school, which to be honest, I don't know where that originated from because I think I missed out on the event where that came to be. But yeah, that was what we were known as, I suppose.
Wow,
But
inspiring.
I
Truly
know, I know, isn't
inspiring.
that touching?
So touching. So you mentioned that you got into the group around
Mhm.
middle of second semester for freshman year. So like
Mhm.
how did that happen if you remember?
Yeah, I think I really kind of just almost stumbled upon it. I had like a close friend who was in the group in its kind of early stages, and then I remember going with them to like Morp, which was our whatever underclassmen prom, and I like kind of tacked onto the group. Did not really know them at all. They didn't know me, which was really funny looking back because they sometimes tell me they're like, "Oh, you're just this random person that kind of showed up, and then you stuck around." And it worked out. But yeah, that was kind of how I entered in, and then from there on out was just kind of with them throughout high school. So
Wow. And were these all girls from your school or was it co-ed?
yeah, it
Oh,
was
okay.
all girls. It was all of us. We went to the same school, lived in very different areas. We lived very far apart, actually. Um, Specifically, I lived like 40 minutes from everyone else. So it was
Wow.
definitely like invested time into this group, which I was happy to do because I love all of them, and to this day still love all of them. But it actually was coming to mind as we were talking about it. But I remember, you know how every group in high school is kind of known for something. Like you
Sure.
have like, oh, the like sports group or like the artsy group. Like our group was specifically known for being the large group, like the large group without problems or like drama in
Wow.
there. Which I just think was because we were very kind of like, I don't know, unproblematic people, I suppose, in this group.
That's an
But
achievement. In today's society, that is
it
an
really is.
achievement.
It's hard to find, and I think that set very lofty expectations for me coming into college, because that was all I had known, was this group of very kind of just like, we all got along, nothing, there was never like, the drama was very very limited in that.
Yeah.
So
No, great
yeah.
transition. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. So you're clearly at Georgetown now. You're a sophomore.
Well, that's what they say.
That is technically what is happening right now. And so talk a bit more about like coming from those expectations, like what were those first few weeks? What was that first semester like as a freshman as you saw the Georgetown culture and how you perceived it with the friendships and the circles?
Yeah, so I came in, first of all, I think there was an added layer of like, I don't know what's going on, because it was suddenly co-ed, which I didn't know how that would like factor in, because I have brothers, so like I've always been relatively like comfortable around guys, like that was not the issue, but guys were never part of the friend group because it was just inherently like 15 girls at my high school. And so coming into college, I really didn't know how that was going to work out, and I also really didn't like, came in knowing nobody basically. And so I remember like coming into the floor, and my roommate actually already had some friends from back home that were also at Georgetown, so I think I felt like she was much more like adept at all of this, and kind of like had friends already, like felt very integrated. And she, of course, like a super great resource in kind of meeting people, because she introduced me to other people as well. But I think very quickly, I kind of, as I feel like most freshmen do, was looped into kind of a amorphous friend group of people on my floor, and that was kind of how it comes into being, which I think is a common, correct me if I'm wrong, in your experience, but that's, I mean, I suppose it's a bit different with COVID and everything, but is kind of a common college experience that like your roommate, your floor, like kind of becomes your first friend group. And I didn't really know what to expect, and I think I also didn't really know necessarily what I was looking for in a friend group, because, or I guess what, maybe I did know what I was looking for, but what I was looking for wasn't necessarily out there because I had such a unique experience coming into it. And so I had these expectations that I would kind of find this circle that I would stick with, and that would be these people that I would be with until senior year. And like pretty quickly, like talked with my older brother and my older sister, and that was not the situation for them. Like theirs definitely kind of changed over time, which I think is natural and isn't the fault of, you know, anybody ever, but it's just like as people grow, things change. But yeah, I would say I came in with these very specific expectations, that pretty, I think quickly I realized that wasn't necessarily going to be the case.
Right.
So.
I think that's like a pretty common experience.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to having like somewhat similar expectations. I came in a bit differently as the class of 2024, meaning we entered in the fall of 2020. But when I moved to Roslyn, which is really close to Georgetown, in the spring of 2021, I remember also having like similar expectations, or just even wondering like if this current group that I feel like pretty close to will be the one I stay with until
Yeah.
senior year.
Yeah.
And going back to that point when you said you quickly realized like that wasn't the case, like what specific moment was that when you felt like you either like weren't going to find that group, or more importantly like you didn't need to, and it was just like a different environment here?
I think it wasn't necessarily so much a specific moment as just a feeling, like when you feel really comfortable around a certain group of people, like, you know, like these are the people I'm meant to be around, to stick around. And I think that beginning of freshman year is so marked by like just everything feels so uncomfortable and out of the ordinary, that I don't think you even really realize it in the context of like friendships, because you're just like, oh, like I just need someone to sit with. Like that was kind of my mentality. Like I just need someone to be with. I can't be alone. Like that was very much it. And so I think you're just very not like selective about the people you spend time with in that first bit of college, which I think is a good thing because you're exposing yourself to so many different types of people. But I think over time I realized that it I realized that I needed to build stronger individual relationships, I suppose. And that's kind of like the main thing that I realized in that first semester was that friend groups very often can feel like you're just in the same place at the same time and like you're just geographically there, and that's why this has come together, and there's nothing kind of holding that together beyond living on the same floor, being on the same campus. And so I quickly realized that in those moments when I needed someone to talk to or anything like that, like I hadn't invested enough time in seeking out individual people and building those individual relationships to actually feel like I had people like that around me. And instead, I was just kind of present in this thing where I was never really getting deeper with anyone, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I very clearly remember that feeling back when I was a freshman, which feels like ages ago at this point. So how does one get to know someone deeper than just like the standard friendship? I mean, it's very subjective, but just in your experience, like, again, I think it will be like you said, it's not a specific moment when you're like, wow, we're like deeper now. It's like a feeling, but just for the audience, like, can you describe that feeling a bit? Like, how can you know when that's happening?
Yeah, I would say it's like it sounds really cheesy, and this is like the same thing they say about like, oh, like when you start dating someone or something, but like you when you feel it, you'll know. Like, and I think that's I always get to a point with people where it's like it's I can point to a specific moment in any friendship I have where I'm like, that's the moment where like we broke the fourth wall, is like what I like to call it. Like, in which you're no longer just that kind of surface level friendship where you can talk about classes, like you can talk about, the club you're in, or like you can, make the very basic kind of chit chat, but you have finally broken through to that like deeper level. And I think for me in early freshman year, that really came by putting myself in situations in which I was forced to be one on one with people for long periods of time. I think that can be a really uncomfortable thing because you don't know these people, like you literally have met like 3 weeks ago, and then suddenly you're sitting there with them alone, and like then the burden of conversation is fully on you, the burden of getting to know them is fully on you, and that forces you to ask questions beyond like what class are you taking, what's your major, because if you're in a big kind of group setting, you can very often rely on the general chit chat of those around you to kind of fill the space and fill the air. And as someone who I would classify myself as more of an introvert. And I think because of that, I like sometimes fall into that trap, and I'm very much just like take the back seat and let other people kind of chat it out about stuff. Um, but when I'm one on one with someone, I'm forced to like make that conversation and ask about. I think the biggest thing for me was like asking about like life back home, because that's where we all came from. Like that's who we are. And this 3 weeks on campus, like it feels like a lifetime when you're, a freshman in college and this is your new world. But there's a whole life behind that I think to really become like good, deep friends, you have to know about that.
Yeah, and I think like we're still pretty surface friends, but in case
Ouch, Sam!
in case
I
I'm
know this is a
mistaken,
roast. Oh my god.
but in case I'm mistaken, like, what do you think that moment was for us when we became like closer friends? Just to
Ooh.
give a bit of painting here.
Well, for context, we kind of had a unique like meeting situation because Sam was my boss basically for the longest time, and still is technically.
Still
And so
is, you're right.
I don't. I honestly would say it was in second semester when we kind of embarked on this like club journey
And what club
together.
is that?
Bridge USA, shameless promo. But Sam is the president of this club that we are founding, and I'm the secretary. And I think when we embarked on that together was kind of the moment I would say that we like broke through that fourth wall, in which it wasn't any more like, oh, we are just in the same place in the same time, like we're in a club together. It's like we sought each other out to be in a club together. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw you out. Like, I don't. You're taking a lot of
Okay,
credit.
you asked me what the moment was. Why? What would you say the moment was?
No, I agree. I
Okay,
agree.
okay.
I mean, obviously, I'm like, all jokes aside, I'm very grateful that you did like respond to my outreach, and like, we are doing this thing. And I think like part of not just like running a club, but a new one, it's like you spend a lot of time together, and inevitably anyways. So I think it's pretty impressive, like not just with us, but just with like a lot of people on the board, like I'm glad that I kind of recruited like two at a time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely like pairs in there
Yeah.
who are friends outside of the board.
Who is my pair? I don't know if I can
I
ask
think
that. We'll discuss this offline.
we'll discuss this afterwards. But I think, yeah, I think that is such like a unique experience. And I tell everyone
Mm-hmm.
this, but like if Anjali hadn't said yes, I probably like would have waited because like
Mm.
I when I was her boss, still am her boss. But back last year, like I think Anjali has always been very driven and like very, very personable, which is why we're talking about this topic in particular. But yeah, Anjali also like deserves a lot of credit
I
for
appreciate
the start
that.
of the club.
This turned from roast to like affirmation so quickly.
I mean, isn't that like all of our
Yeah, that's true.
conversations?
That is exactly how it goes. Actually, you're getting the full friendship right here
all
on
in
the
all in
air.
one 30-minute
Yeah,
podcast.
in a nutshell.
Going back to the friend circles, so I think another topic that is really talked about is
Mm-hmm.
like freshman year. Generally, people are just kind of like buzzing around and
Mm-hmm.
trying out new things, and then sophomore year is when allegedly friendship groups or circles
Mm-hmm.
start solidifying more. I know like we've spent a lot of time like demystifying friend circles, but just in terms of general shifts with like the
Yeah.
friendship culture, have you noticed any shifts from your freshman year to now, pretty deep into sophomore year?
I would say so. I think the biggest one is that freshman year, people are very much like, I want to meet anyone and everyone. And I really like, I feel like everyone, especially in first semester of freshman year, is very much like pushing yourself to get out there and to meet people because it's that feeling of, I don't want to be alone. Like, this is the foundation I'm building. And I think what I've noticed is in sophomore year, like, that's a lot less so. Like, the people I start or that I've like I have lunch with on a regular basis, dinner, it is kind of the same rotating circle of people inevitably because it's just no longer is it kind of like that random person that you meet in the hall and then like you grab lunch together. Like that's just not so much a phenomenon in sophomore year and beyond. And so if you do want to step outside your like kind of concentric circle of people, you really have to you have to make that effort and you have to put yourself out there. And so I've definitely noticed that people, I think, and myself included, and by no means apart from this, but definitely start to kind of like fall back and stay within their comfort zone of friendships, which I think is also because you slowly have kind of found your people. And I think things are have definitely I've noticed like shaken out a bit in the first bit of sophomore year. I'm sure it'll continue to, but I think as you grow, everyone was kind of growing a lot last year and really changing their college experience, and then went home and kind of was recentered and refocused on who they are, who they were, and now has come back and is really kind of coming into their own. And so I think because of that, people have very much found their people, and it is kind of more like separated circles versus one large pool of people that is kind of more open to dipping in and out of different groups. So.
Yeah, I think that only becomes more and more true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm only a year
Yeah.
older than you, but I definitely feel like people are pretty much set. I think from the junior perspective, that's like usually when you, in my opinion, should be at like your most involved leadership
Mm-hmm.
wise. Like I think other clubs have structures where like the seniors are the most involved, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's that typical for
Yeah.
Georgetown.
Yeah.
So like as a junior and I'm like leading these two clubs, I feel like I know my junior friends, but so much of the first half of the first semester is like getting to know freshmen and like
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
sophomores on my boards. So I think it's almost like a role reversal, whereas like
Yeah.
the underclassmen are like trying to meet as many people
Mm-hmm.
upwards, but then once you're at the junior level, you have to meet people
Yeah. Like yeah.
below
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how
So
this friendship came about.
totally, that's exactly how it happened. But yeah, that's really interesting. And then going on to like, this is like kind of out there, and this leads into like the reflection part. But Georgetown is known for like having senior housing having to be determined like sophomore spring or
Mm,
junior fall. So I'm curious, like you're a sophomore
yeah.
in fall semester now, like
Mm-hmm.
have there been talks among the class of 2025 about senior year housing? Because it seems to get earlier and earlier, and that's like
Yeah.
a lot of like it's not defined friend circles, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
living together, you're kind of
Yes.
in a circle. So
No,
any thoughts
definitely.
on that?
Well, currently I live in a double, And so that I feel like is very much kind of still that freshman vibe of like, yes, it's like you're living with someone you're very close to, but it's not like I don't necessarily live around my closest friends, like because all the dorms are within what, like a 50-foot radius of each other, like it's not stopping anyone. But I do think that that is something that I find very interesting, is that at Georgetown, like you do have to basically sign a lease for your senior year housing, like a year, if not a year and a half, maybe before it's starting. And I think that that's very interesting because so much can change in a year of friendships, like so much can change in a month of friendships. And so in my experience, it hasn't come up yet, the discussions surrounding housing and all of that. I'm sure that will be a highlight of second semester is, fleshing all of that out. But I think for now, everyone is really just trying to find their footing, and kind of everyone wants these very solidified groups. And I think as much as we want it, it's still kind of shifting as people are changing. And so I think because of that, everyone's very focused on that. And once people feel like they've solidified their circles, I think it'll move into like those matters of housing and all that. But that is a very kind of concerning thought to me because I don't know, you just really have to trust these people and put a lot of faith in it. But
Yeah.
that's what it is.
For the next episode, we'll do like another episode next semester, like where we are now.
How the housing situation is coming.
Yeah, so yes. There'll be a continuation.
Yes. No, sidebar, but potentially maybe I'll just be living in a double again for my whole life with the housing situation being what it is.
Your whole college life.
Yeah. No, not my entire life.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Yes,
I will be in Harvard for my whole life, friends.
Moving on to kind of the last part and just wrapping up in terms of looking forward. How do you keep making friends as you get more comfortable in college? And then we can, for fun, maybe talk about after college too. But for now, just like as you get more comfortable and seemingly knowing of other people, even though that's like, itself pretty subjective, how well you really know someone else, like how do you keep making new friends?
I would say, I am by no means the authority to speak on this. Like I am, have done a lot of reflection about this myself, and like I'm working through this myself. But I think the biggest thing is that the thing is first like realization, and the realization that when you're in kind of this busy college life, inherently you have like academics, you have clubs, you have like career stuff that you're all doing, and very quickly the social thing can kind of take a very much a back seat in that. And I think for me it often does. And so the easiest thing is always to reach out to someone you know really well, someone you're super comfortable with, and be like, oh, like let's grab dinner, let's do this, like on the weekends, like let's go out together, like let's go to this restaurant, whatever it might be. And I think that's just the go-to, is to do that. And I think the first thing and the first step in making new friends is to recognize that, and then to stop yourself when you're doing that. Like on a random Tuesday night when you don't have firm dinner plans, and you would automatically reach out to your best friend or your roommate or someone to go grab dinner at Leo's. Reach out to someone else. Like reach out to someone that you met in a club or someone that you're not super close to, and like push yourself a bit to get out there. And I think that is, for me, I'm often like, oh my gosh, making new friends, like that takes so much time. Like I don't really have the time to like stick that in my GCal of like, forming this new friendship. But I would say combine it, and my roommate and I were actually just talking about this, but combine it with something you would inherently do. So if it's like, I have to get dinner, eat with someone that you don't necessarily know as well. If it's I have to go to the gym, do that with someone you don't know as well. There are these things that you are doing in your daily life anyway, regardless of, who you're doing it with, that you can then just do it with other people. And that's not to say that your friendships that you have already are not valuable. There's like that. I was about to ask if you were ever a Girl Scout. You were not a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, we used to sing this song that was like make new friends but keep the old. So obviously very important to maintain and keep investing time and energy into the friendships you already have, because those are never things you want to lose. But I would say like my goal at least has been to once a week have dinner with someone I wouldn't normally have dinner with, or do something with someone I wouldn't normally do something with. And that way, slowly, maybe you're not going to make the deepest new friend. Like maybe this person isn't going to be your go-to, like lifeline bridesmaid type person. but they will be someone that you can then say hi to in the hall. Maybe there's someone you grab dinner with once a month, whatever it may be. And I think if you keep expanding that circle of people that you are spending time with, that is super valuable, because one, you're expanding the number of people that you can reach out to and then know you and then appreciate you, and that always like just feels good. Also, you're meeting new people, hearing about new experiences. And lastly, it is such a skill to be able to make conversation with someone that you don't know as well. It's such a valuable skill to be able to like take that risk and not feel uncomfortable or awkward in those situations. And so even just if you take it even as just I'm building my own personal skills by having dinner or lunch with this person, and you take it as maybe 5 years down the road when you're doing an interview or you're in a work situation and you have to have lunch with someone, your boss, who knows, when Sam's still my boss 5 years from now and we're having lunch together or whatever, like that is such a skill to be able to just feel comfortable being with someone you don't know as well. And so that's what I would say in terms of like continuing to make new friends. But
Yeah, no, period. I think that's pretty much the discussion.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Anjali, for being on the podcast. I really
course.
appreciate it.
Of
I'm sure
course.
whoever listens also really appreciates it. And yeah, I'm just really excited for people to listen to this.
Can I add one last thing?
Yeah.
I always think, and I like to say this because this is the way that I measure that a friendship is like really deep and a good one. And I think it's a good test. I know that I'm really good friends with someone if I could be comfortable sitting in a car with them in silence. Because I have very often been in cars where like I used to babysit and like the parents would drive me home sometimes, and it was always so awkward because I didn't know these people and I felt like I had to make conversation. But if you can sit in silence with someone, you know that they are a good friend. Like if you don't feel pressured to like have conversations with them. And so my goal is always, when I'm making friends, like the people I surround myself with, try to get to that level, like try to build up to a friendship where you are just so comfortable that you could sit in a car with them for hours.
I agree. No, I agree. And I think like both the point about the silence and also just doing activities with new people, with those activities being ones you would already do. Like I've talked about that with my friends like so many times, which is why I'm convinced like sometimes me and Anjali are the same person because she says like, well, she obviously is like better than me in a lot of ways.
That's absolutely not true.
Yeah, no, that's also a side note about our friendship. I'm always surprised like how similar like the things we say are.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for that. No apologies. No, you're good. Thank you again.
Of course.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of College Conscience with my guest. If you want to see or hear more episodes, go visit College Conscience on Spotify, where I'll upload new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for listening.